Good day everyone. This morning, ang atong title sa atong i-discuss is the seven heads and the ten horns in Daniel and Revelation. So makita niya siya sa Daniel 7 and Revelation 17. Kasi ang Daniel 7, naghisgot siya og seven heads and ten horns also in Revelation 17. So dire atong tanawon if the same ba siya? The same ang interpretation or magkalahi-lahi. So atong sugdan. The four beasts in Daniel 7:4-7. We already know that ang Daniel 7 naghisgot siya og upat ka beast, upat ka animals. Una is ang Babylonia, which is the Babylon. Kaduha, Medo Persia, the Greece, and the Rome. So makita nato dire, gi-describe dire in verse 4. The first beast is like a lion and had eagle wings. I behold till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as men, and a man's heart was given to it. So kani in the previous verses in Daniel, we already know this is the prophecy of Daniel. Ang kaning lion, ang gingharian is sa Babylonia, which is the head of gold in the statue in Daniel prophecy. The second is the bear, a second like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. So atong nahibaw-an niya ang kaning bear siya ang Medo Persia. Again in verse 6, the third beast is like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So dire sa Bisay of all the 4 beasts, siya ang naay gi-specify o gitagaan o description nga 4 heads. So we already know that this was Greece, and the 4 heads in Daniel 7 are the 4 generals after the death of Alexander the Great. Mao ni ang nag-continue sa iyang power. The 4 generals. And the last is the dragon, or the fourth beast is the dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it agreed iron teeth, it devour and break in pieces, and stamp the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So here gi-describe po ang kaning fourth beast, nasa 10 horns, nasa napulo kasungay. So base ani ang verse 6 sa tanan nga beast, like I said kanina, na siya lang ang naay specify giyon nga 4 heads. Nganong gi-specify man siya out of all 4 beast nga naay upat? So it coincidence lang ba nga nahimo siyang 7 heads nga mo coincide siya sa Daniel 17? Ato nang tanawon sa mga sunod nga mga slides. So here, let's count the heads. The Babylon or the lion had 1 head. The bear also 1 head. The leopard, which is the Greece, had 4 heads. And the fourth beast 1 head. So overall, there are 7 heads. So mga siya. Total 7 heads. Let's go to the 10 horns. So like I said ganina in verse 7, this beast that were before it had 10 horns. Naa siya napulo kasungay. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were like eyes like a man, and mouth speaking great things. So niya siya, nasa 10 horns. So gi-specify dire sa Daniel 7 nga ang napulo kasungay, the 10 horns out of these kingdoms are the 10 kings that shall rise, and another shall rise after them. So, mao ni ang 10 kingdoms. So, we already know that the Roman Empire, wala na siya makangkerd, but they are divided from within. Na-divide siya. These are the Germans, the Swiss, the French, Italians, English, Portuguese, Spanish, and the three Heruli, Ostrogoths, Vandals are already extinct during this time, during our time. So in verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So before siya niguwas, ang kaning gamay nga sungay, naibot ang tulo. Which is this, the Heruli, the Ostrogoth, and the Vandals, instinct na karon, because they did not follow, or wala sila magpa-under, musunod sa papacy, or the Roman papacy, or the papacy Rome. That's why they are now extinct during our times. Until now, this tribe nation kingdom still hold the authority powers in this world. So ang nahibilin niya 7 plus ang papacy Rome, sila gihapon ang gingharian nga nagkapot karon sa kalibutan. Og as we all know that the 5th era during the statue of Daniel's prophecy, it is a mixture of partly iron and partly clay nga dili gid siya mausa. So dili gid siya magkahiusa. So this is the little horn in Daniel 7. So kung gusto gid mo nga mas klaro, masabtan, so naay link dire from Babylon to America, which is mao na akong gikuha niya source. WW School of for Prophets.tv. Very nice ang iyang pag-explain, very informative. But let's go back to our topic, the 7 heads. Let's go back to Revelation 17. The 7 heads and the 10 horns in Revelation 17. So aton ning i-discuss karon ang sa Revelation if it is the same 7 heads and the 10 horns in Daniel 7. So in verse 9, 10 and 11 atong basahon dire the 7 heads. And there is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. So now, let's focus only here with the 7 heads. In verse 9, giingon dire nga, and here is the mind without wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains of which the woman sitteth. If we interpret this as literal, mountain, giingon nila nga diya sa Rome, mo contradict siya sa following verse, sa verse 10. Kasi dito, gi-specify ang era during the time of John the Revelator, nga nagsulat siya, giingon niya 5 are fallen. So ibig sabihin dili siya literal hill, but instead they are the kingdoms which is under the influence or under the authority of this woman. And who is this woman? We all know that in Revelation na duha nga gisulti nga babae, the faithful and the remnant woman, and the whore or katong bigaon nga babae. So ato ning matan-aw, these are the kingdoms that the woman or the paganism sitteth. Woman is the paganism, sitteth had the authority. So they are the Babylon, Medo-Persian, the Greece, the Rome, and the divided Rome. So ato, let's continue. Let's compare the 7 heads in Daniel 7:4-7 and Revelation 17 verse 9. So okay, Babylon has 1 head, Medo-Persia 1 head, the Greece has 4 heads, and the Rome has 1 head. We already know that, like I said earlier, mao na sila ang heads. That's why magwonder ta nganong gi-specify diha sa verse 6 in Daniel 7 nga ang Greece is 4 heads. Kasi pwede mo na ito makonsider ang reign sa Babylon is during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, niabot pa siya sa iyahang grandson before sila na sa conquer sa Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia between Darius and the other king, Cyrus. But why Greece is specified here, foreheads in Daniel 7 verse 6. So let's continue. Ato po compare dire, atong butangan, the Medo-Persia is the first king. The Greece has 4 kings, which is the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth king. So overall 5 kings na sila. Rome, which is John's era, kang John's panahon, John the Revelator's time, the 6th king. The divided Rome, which is the 7th king, and the papacy, which is the 8th king, or the Roman Catholic Church. So here, ato nang i-discuss if it is tama niya ang pagkasuwat dere. So like I said, the Medo-Persia, the first king. If we wonder, nganong wala ta magsugod dere sa Babylon? Wala akong magsugod dere sa Babylon because we consider the hint or the clues. During the time of John the Revelator's time, gisulti niya nga 5 are fallen. So backward ta during Rome. So ibig sabihin, John's era during the time of his exile or imprisonment in the island of Patmos during 61 AD. Diha pangunom na siya nga kingdom. So atras ta, so abot ta ni Medo-Persia is the first king, Greece the fourth king. So later ako pang explain nganong ang Babylon wala po siya magamit. Wala po siya mo stand as one. Kasi mo kung butang na tog one, moabot ta siya 6 kingdoms ang nawala. Then let's go to the next page. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the others not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Ato ni siyang i-match. Let's break down this verse in verse 10 in Revelation chapter 17. Kung mo-match ba katong atong gibutang kanina. Okay. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen. So atong focus there is a blue nga highlights. The 5 are fallen. So these kingdoms or these kings are the kingdom before John the Revelator's time. In other words, those 5 kingdoms are before Roman Empire. Kasi kahibaw man ta nga ang panahon ni John the Revelator is during the Roman Empire. Okay? So the first king, so if 5 are fallen, so backward ta. So when we say Greece, ang katong Greece ganina in Daniel 7 na ay upat ka hari, the 4 heads. So ibig sabihin ang usa nga na lang nga madugang is Medo-Persia, wala na maapil ang Babylon. So the first king is during Medo-Persia 539 BC to 331 BC. And the second to fifth king are the 4 kingdoms in Greece, which is in Daniel 7 verse 6, 331 BC and 168 BC. And dire na punta sa next. And 1 is, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, which is ganina, and 1 is. This kingdom was John the Revelator's time during his imprisonment in the island of Patmos in year 61 AD. Unsa naging harian ang panahon ni John the Revelator? We already know that was Roman Empire. Ang Roman Empire nag-reign siya in the year 168 BC to 476 AD. So 61 AD during Patmos, during imprisonment of John, so in the middle siya sa Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire is the 6th king. Again, continue. And the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Here, ang pampito ko nga kingdom, wala pa maabot. So this 7th king will reign after John's era, or the kingdom after the Rome, or the Roman Empire. But we already knew that Rome will not be conquered from outside, but rather be divided from within. So after the Roman Empire, nahuman siya in the year 476 AD. So ang nisunod nga ging harian ay the divided Rome, which is in Daniel prophecy. Mao na to ang mga tudlo sa atong tiil. the ten tribes or the 10 kingdoms. So the seventh kingdom is the divided room. So it reigned in the year 476 AD to 538 AD. So magwonder mo, diin ko nakuha ng 538 AD. So ako nang ato na matubag sa mga sunod ng mga slides. So let's compare this to the other kingdoms in term of duration, time, or authority. So nato'y condition ganina ang pampito nga hari, di ba? And the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So among the kingdoms, i-specify dere kung ang ikapito bangaging harian, siya ang pinaka-short out of all the 7 kingdoms. So atong tanawon kung ang ikapitong kingdom ba mo match sa condition aning Revelation 17 verse 10. So Medo-Persia during the time 539 BC to 331 BC. So 108 years ang ilang pag-reign sa kalibutan. The Greece, Alexander the Great's time and his 4 generals, 163 years. The Rome or the Roman Empire, 168 BC to 476 AD, reigned for 623 years. And the divided Rome from 476 AD, before the Rome was divided, until 538 AD, it was 62 years. Kung mag-wonder ta, unsa ning 538 AD? We already know that in Daniel, the prophecy of in Revelation, the 1260 day year prophecy, we already know that the reign of the papacy, it started, or the papacy has its authority during the year 538 AD. And now, 538 AD, until the present time, the papacy Rome reigned. Siya ang naay dako nga authority. So, like I said ganina, atong i-compare ang mga years. So, sa tanan, ang the divided room that started 476 AD to 538 AD before the reign of the papacy, he only reigned o naa siya ang katong divided room naala sa 62 years. So he must continue a short space. So out of all the kingdom, siya ang pinakaubos. So now let's go to the following verse. Okay, so na to 5 kings, 5 are fallen, kaning and one is the 6th king, and the other is not yet come, which is the 7th king. When he come, he must continue a short space. Then mungarita sa verse 11 in Revelation 17. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. So the 8th kingdom is the papacy Rome. It started from 538 AD up to the present time, which is also called the Babylon. Ato ning himayon. And the beast that was and is not, and goeth into perdition. Meaning, the beast is from the past. He is not in the present, and goeth into perdition. So, wala na yung harian nga after sa iya pag moabot ning pangwalo nga beast. Unsa pa iyahang kuan? Kung tanawon nato dire, let's say in Revelation 14 verse 8, 18 verse 2, verses 10 to 21. Unsa nga gingharian na fallen? In verse 8 in Revelation 14, are there followed angels, another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all the nations drink of wine of the wrath of her fornication. Again, Babylon, which is fallen. In Revelation 18 verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful birds. In verse 10, standing afar from the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is the judgment come. In And verse 21, and mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone stone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with the violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So the last kingdom which be thrown and go to perdition is the Babylon. So here, let's focus in the following lines. Even he is the eighth and is of the seven. So we already know that the eighth kingdom, the papacy or the Babylon, he is the eighth. So after the seven kingdoms, he is the eighth. After the divided Rome, the papacy niguwas, but he is also part of the seven. Kasi out of the 10 kingdoms or the 10 tribes or the feet of the statue of Daniel's prophecy, we already know that papacy Rome is one of those 10 tribes. But during his authority or during sa iyang pagwas sa iyang power o pag-reign niya sa kalibutan, we already know that out of the 10, 3 were plucked up. Natanggal ang tulo. Which is the Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. So, even he is the 8 and is of the 7. He is part of the 7, even he is the 8. So now, it is clear that the 8th kingdom is the papacy Rome, which will go into perdition. No other kingdom na mosunod after sa ilaha. So, in summary, atong tanawon, Medo-Persia 538, the first king, the Greece, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth king, which is the fourth commander of Greece. The Rome is the sixth king during John the Revelator's time. The divided Rome, which is the seventh king, which ni Mat siyang only serve a short period of time out of all kingdoms siyang pinakaubos. And the last kingdom, which is he is the eighth and is of the seven. He is the eighth, but he is part of the seven. Apil siya sa dito gihapon sa niguwas, dito gihapon sa gikan sa pampitong harian, but he is the eighth. So which is the papacy Rome or the Roman Catholic Church. So let's go back to Daniel 7. The 10 tribes nga giingon dire ganina, the Germans, the Swiss, the Franks or the French, the Lombards or the Italians, the Saxons or the English, the Suevi or the Portuguese, Visigoths, Spanish, Heruli, Ostrogoths, and Vandals. These are the 10 tribes, which 3 are plucked up. So this was during the divided Rome. Kaning mga gingharian mao ning during divided Rome. And pangwalo ni guwas dito. He is the 8th, but he is part of the 7th kingdom, the papacy Rome. So ako lang i-discuss gamay ang we already know that the Roman Empire started in the year 538 AD, which is the decree of Justinianus. The papacy rises to power. So mo niyang tagna katong sa 1260 days which is his the papal supremacy or his power base dire sa Revelation 13 verse 3. And I saw one of his heads, ang gisultihan dire kadto na ning beast nga nay pito ka ulo, as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So naay samad nga pwede ni ay kamatay pero naayo. The papacy, the supremacy of papal reigned from 538 AD to 1798. This was during the time of Napoleon, during the reign of Pope Pius VI nga gipriso siya ni Napoleon. diri na human ang ilahang gingharian. But after the Lateran Treaty during 1929, the Lateran Pax of 1929, nagkanaan na po sila ay authority, nakabalik sila sa ilahang gingharian or power. The Lateran Pax of 1929 is the agreement between the Kingdom of Italy under King Victor Emmanuel III and the Holy See under Pope Pius XI to settle the long-standing Roman question. The treaty and associated pacts were named after the Lateran Palace, where they were signed on 11th day of February 1929, and the Italian parliaments ratified them on the 7th day of June 1929. The treaty recognized Vatican City as an independent state under the sovereignty of the Holy See. So here, like I said ganina, in verse 3 in Revelation 13, one of the heads of the beast in Revelation 13, as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So ang prophecy nagkatagna during the time of 1929 that the Vatican makabalik siya sa iyang power. The treaty recognized Vatican City as an independent state under the sovereignty of the Holy See. The Italian government also agreed to give the Roman Catholic Church financial compensation for the loss of papal states. In 1948, the Lateran Treaty was recognized in the Constitution of Italy as regulating the relations between the state and the Catholic Church. So it is clear now that the Eighth Kingdom is the papacy Rome. First niya nga pag-reign 538 AD to 1798 AD. That was 1260 years of power, which is the prophecy in Revelation and Daniel. And also after the Lateran Treaty in 1929 AD up to the present, they have their authority. So the Eighth Kingdom is the papacy Rome or the Roman Catholic Church. So let's go to the next verse in Revelation 17. So dire na po gisgutan ang the ten horns. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are the 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receives power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So here, ang napulo kuno kasungay nga iyang nakita are the 10 kings, pero wala pa sila tagai o gingharian. So during our time, wala pa ni sila, kasi kuandere pag naako no sila, pag makahatagan na sila og authority or gingharian, they will only receive power as kings or have authority 1 hour with the beast, or usa lang ka oras kauban ang kaning beast. So unsay ibig sabihin, pila na kaadlaw ang 1 hour. So we already know that the 1 day or 1 year prophecy nga ang usa ka adlaw, usa ka tuig sa ato sa kalibutan. So 1 year is 365 days, divide by 1 hour, 1 day is composed of 24 hours. So 365 divided by 24 hours para makuha nato kung pila ka adlaw ang usa ka oras. So that was 15 days. So only 15 days ang paghari ani nga mga beast kung matagaan na sila og power. So conclusion, in Daniel 7, the 7 heads are also the 7 kingdoms in Revelation 17, but wala giapil ang Babylon. The 10 horns in Daniel 7 are the 10 tribes, which is the divided room or the 10 toes na pulo katudlo, which 3 are plucked or naibot, og kani napulihan og usa ka gingharian, which is had authority right now, the papacy room. But in Revelation 17, the 10 horns, lahi siya sa 10 horns sa Daniel. Kasi Daniel, that was the 10 tribes. Here, dili siya ang 10 tribes. Wala pa siya ma-identify kung kinsa na sila nga magiging harian. But I know they are the big countries. Nga sooner or later, they will be joining the papacy room, and they will only given 15 days to reign until the beast or the Babylon will go into perdition. So, thank you for listening, and hope we continue to study our Bible and ask for the Holy Spirit to guide us, give us understanding as we continue to wait for our Savior Jesus Christ. To God be the glory.